Hello everyone. I really enjoy lupins, be it in nature, be it in gardens, or as in my case, on balconies. My lupins have performed extremely well on both my balconies in the UK and in Germany. Bumblebees love lupins, so it's also really good thing to have on your balcony for the wildlife. And I enjoy them especially for their leaves. Really love this leaf structure, but also for their vertical interest and the great colors of lupins in general. Even though you see lupins in nature quite a lot, I want to show you in this video how you can grow lupins in containers, so simple terracotta pots, by just following 7 easy steps. Let's start with a bit of background information. Lupins, the lupins that you find in gardens, are usually hybrid crosses of native species, and the parent species are originally from North America, but you can find them nowadays all across Europe, for example. These days, lupins are bred in such a way to really maximize color, to maximize the length of the blooming period, so you will get a lot of color and you will get a lot of interest throughout the spring and summer months with the modern day lupins. Lupins can be perennial or annual, but the potted varieties that we usually have are perennial plants. You have to be careful though, lupins are toxic, I think all parts of the plant, but especially the seeds and the seed pots. So, I mean, you have to eat quite a lot for like humans to really feel it, but they're also toxic to animals. In some countries like Iceland, lupins have actually become quite invasive. So maybe it's not a bad idea to grow lupins in pots. This way you can at least control the spread of lupins a little bit better, and this way you will protect the native flora a little bit more. Okay, let's now talk about the 7 things that you should consider when growing lupins in containers on your balcony, or on your patio, in your garden even. The first thing is container size. So I have 2 different container sizes here. So this is one. So it's not the biggest pot for a big plant like a lupin. This pot is even a little bit more shallow. Those are just normal terracotta pots. And so from my experience, it doesn't need to be the biggest sized pot or the biggest sized container to grow a lupin. However, they have a relatively big taproot, so you need to have at least some depth and some width to the pot for it to contain the taproot, and I think usually after 2 years in a pot this size, they will be root bound, so it really makes sense to repot them in a bigger pot after 2 to 3 years. I usually enjoy terracotta pots, but essentially any pot would do as long as they have drainage holes. The second thing is soil. Lupins tolerate moist to well-drained soil, and but what's quite important is the pH of the soil, because they prefer acidic soil, acidic to neutral soil. They don't really thrive in very alkaline soil. The great thing about planting lupins in pots is therefore that you don't have to worry too much about alkaline or the pH of the soil too much, because average potting soil is usually completely fine for lupins from my experience. I also think that you don't need to add anything to the soil to make it drain better, like small stones or so. because while they don't want to stand in water, of course, they can tolerate moist soil, and they will usually be fine again with the normal drainage of normal potting soil. The third thing is watering. At the moment, these two lupins are the most water-hungry plants on my balcony. Now that it's like late spring, I water them at least every 2 days. And that's something lupins actually need. They need regular watering. Of course, you can grow them in larger pots with more soil to maybe reduce the number of times that you have to water them. But again, regular watering is key. Usually you can see when a lupin needs water. That's when the leaves start to sag a little bit or crumple up a little bit. Then you see, oh, they definitely need water urgently. The fourth thing is pruning. I made a video a while ago about how I prune my lupins, and I will link the video in the description box below. Essentially, you just have to make sure to deadhead the lupins as soon as the blooms are spent. For example, here you can see that the blooms are spent, and when the entire rest of the lupin looks the same way, then it's time to deadhead it. Unless you want the lupin to put a lot of energy into the seed production. But if you are more interested in the blooms, yeah, make sure to deadhead the spent blooms. And this way, from my experience, the lupins will bloom all summer long. The fifth point is all about light and temperature requirements. Lupins enjoy full sun or partial sun depending on your climate zone. So I would say at least 6 hours ideally. But if you live in a very hot climate, make sure that in the afternoon they will have some shade because they can't tolerate really hot climates. In the climates where I grew my lupins, they have been winter hardy, and for me they even were a source of winter interest because I told you that I really like the leaves, and I had these leaves throughout the winter, so it was quite nice to look at my lupin even in December and January. The sixth point is fertilizing. Lupins don't require too much fertilizing. Actually, if you fertilize them too much or too often, this might encourage excess foliage and not enough bloom production. So yeah, you can limit your fertilizing schedule when it comes to fertilizing the lupin. But if you have very alkaline soil, it shouldn't really be the case if you grow them in containers, you can use an acidifying fertilizer. The seventh and final point are illnesses, and for me the biggest problem has been powdery mildew. This lupin, for example, actually had powdery mildew. This is when you have this grey silvery fungus on the leaves, which eventually kills the leaves. And my way of dealing with it is just it's like cutting off the leaves and discarding them, not leaving them on the soil, and making sure that they have enough air circulation, because that's usually the biggest source for powdery mildew. And then, of course, you can also have slugs, snails, or aphids attacking it. But from my experience, this hasn't been as much of a problem as powdery mildew. Yeah, so this is it from my side. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you thought it was helpful. And yeah, maybe you will grow some lupins in containers in the near future as well. I will see you very soon. Bye bye.